That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Splitsville, the sophomore film directed by Michael Angelo Covino, which premiered at the 2025 Cannes Film Festival. Neon is releasing it theatrically August 22nd, 2025.
I know I've seen a film from this director.
Yes, The Climb, which was a 2019 premiere. I believe we reviewed it. It's based on a previous short film, which she also co-wrote and co-starred in with Kyle Marvin. Same with this film.
What is Splitsville about? When Ashley asks for a divorce, the good-natured Carey runs to his friends, Julie and Paul, for support. Their secret to happiness is an open marriage. That is, until Carey crosses the line and throws all of their relationships into chaos. What is your pull quote?
That synopsis is so definitive and also not really what's happening, but okay. Splitsville is funny and charming, but ultimately a bit trivial when it comes to articulating more authentic aspects of relationships, testing the boundaries of heteronormative expectations. In short, it's complicated for heterosexual millennials considering polyamory.
Mine. As messy as some open relationships and not always as deep, Splitsville still lands its laughs with honest humor.
I agree. I think my pull quote sounds negative, but I did enjoy this film and laughed quite a bit.
I also liked it.
Mm-hmm. I think that, like we talked a lot after we watched it, and I think it kind of feels like it's missing a few punches where it really needed to land them, particularly in the third act, where it's great to have all of these comedic scenarios about something that is, quite serious in some people's lives, considering fallout and relationships. But I think it's well intentioned, but sometimes that path leads to hell.
I enjoyed the humor, but I do think there are moments when it feels chaotic, when I would have preferred we delve a little deeper into some of the themes.
Right. Like a sobering moment of like, what does this actually mean for what we're feeling? And I think the finale is ambiguous, and there's some interesting ways to interpret what that is.
Yeah, that being said, there is a lot to talk about. I think, people, like couples, could watch it and have a really good conversation. Mm-hmm. But the story, so Ashley and Carey, Ashley is played by Adria Arjona, mm-hmm. and Carey is played by Kyle Marvin. Mm-hmm. They're married. They've been married for like 14 months, and they're taking a road trip to go visit their friends, Paul, who's played by Michael Angelo Covino, and Julie, who's played by Dakota Johnson. And Paul and Julie are rich. They live in this, well, they have two homes, so everyone's meeting at like their vacation home, I guess. And
it's like a Materialist if she had picked Pedro Pascal.
Exactly. And Carey and Ashley, we're told, are broke. So they are on their way there, Carey and Ashley, when they witness a car accident, mm-hmm. and the passenger involved in that car accident dies.
A woman.
And Ashley had gotten up close and personal, like trying to revive this person with CPR, but is unsuccessful. So it seems like after the incident, as they're driving, like she feels inspired to speak her truth. And she tells Carey, I want a divorce. I've been unfaithful. I want to explore other things. Uh-huh. And before she can even delve into why and what they can do, Carey jumps out of the car and starts running and runs all the way to Paul and Julie's house.
It's like Mark Wahlberg at the end of the Gambler remake.
And it takes them hours. So in that time, Ashley has already driven there, told them what happened, and has left. Mm-hmm. So now Carey is at Paul and Julie's house. It's important to know Paul and Carey are best friends. And of course, Paul and his wife, Julie, are trying to comfort Carey. Basically, like, people get divorced and at least you two don't have money and a kid to worry about. And then they share that the secret to their happy marriage is that they're open.
We need to get back to that, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
But what ends up happening is Carey has sex with Julie, his best friend's wife, and then the next morning tells him immediately. And one of my favorite scenes in the movie is Paul and Carey get into a fight, an extended fight sequence. But
That's a fight scene that's as good as Rowdy Rod Piper and Keith David and They Live, actually, between two men just kind of going at it.
okay. But then things get real complicated because Carey ends up leaving to go back to his wife because they have a place together. They're not officially divorced. And she's already with some other man having sex. But he basically tells her, like, if all you want is to have sex with other people, we can do that. We can be open. And let's just work on us outside of that. And she agrees. And then what follows, which I was kind of hoping would be the more of what the movie was, is that Carey starts befriending because Ashley is running through these men and one woman like track and field. I mean, it's crazy. So Carey is befriending all these people, and now their apartment is like a community center for wayward tricks, I guess. Like,
I don't think it's crazy per se, is that she seems like she should have done this a decade before in her life.
well, we need to talk about the casting. But so then that's happening. Then Paul, we find out that he is involved in like white collar crimes, like embezzlement, fraud, all that, and ends up getting in trouble. And Julie, Dakota Johnson's character, separates from him. And then she and Carey get together. So the final act of the film is that Julie and Carey are together. Like they're a full-blown couple. Paul is in prison and Ashley's dating some mentalist. Paul gets out of prison, but part of his parole is he needs somewhere to live. So he's living with they're still married because he refuses to sign the divorce papers. But they're all living together. Paul, Carey, and Julie. It's important to know Paul and Julie have a kid. Like, what is he, like 9?
Russ.
Simon
Webster.
Who we need to talk about because he's a little problem. But he has a birthday party, and then this is another scene where it feels kind of chaotic.
It feels like it has too many resolutions and plays into expectations. Like they're both going to have a confrontation with their ex and make a poor choice.
But a lot happens where ultimately they realize that they all just need to go back to home base. So Carey gets back with his wife, Ashley, and Paul gets back with Julie. And then we flash forward maybe like 2 years because we see that Ashley has had a baby and the baby looks a little older than a newborn. And the end of the film is they're all back at that vacation home, except they lost it due to their financial problems. So they're renting it like as an Airbnb. And it seems like they're all like the best of friends. The end. Okay.
Musical chairs.
Oh, let's start with the music. I like the soundtrack.
I do too. Well, it opens with Whenever I Call You a Friend by Kenny Loggins featuring Stevie Nicks, which I remember my mother listening to profusely. And I thought that was sweet. Although, based on the themes that we explore in the film, I think Love the One You're With by Stephen Stills would have been more appropriate.
Okay, the film is broken up into, I think, maybe like 6 parts, and they're all labeled as articles. And they have titles like termination event, tenants in common, free of duress, which are all terms you'd find like in a contract.
Yes.
I think specifically like a real estate contract, which is interesting because like talking about property and like marriage is almost something, I mean, it is a contract and then you're someone else's property, it would seem. And then Paul's character is involved in real estate. So I kind of thought that all was kind of fun.
And is doing dirty deeds.
Yeah, or dirty deals.
Done dirt cheap, yeah.
I'm just going to go through my notes. I wrote down this movie should be called Penisville because we see Kyle Marvin's penis more than you would expect. Which is, I guess, speaking of refreshing, I think this story feels quite fresh.
I think, well, between this and The Climb, The Climb has very similar feelings about these two people playing lifelong friends that are interrupted by a woman, and they kind of have a Euro feel to them, which is why I feel like Cannes has invited them so openly with I believe their first, The Climb premiered there as well. Well, I don't remember actually. But yes, this kind of has a European flavor to it, but doesn't quite go there as far as like a French film would go.
I thought Kyle Marvin looked exactly like if you mix Dr. Steve Brule and Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
I liked him.
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay, so when Dakota Johnson's character is explaining to Carey about like why she and her husband are open, she basically says that most relationships end because of guilt. And so if you make the thing that makes you guilty no longer bad, then you eliminate that. Mm-hmm. And that's why they're open. But the gag is, and we should probably, this is something you kind of alluded to, but one aspect of these characters' situation that I found needed to be more developed is that we find out in the end that while Paul and Julie were open, mm-hmm. they both admit to each other that they never actually slept with anyone else. And I find that very odd because when they first explained it to Carey, he asked, like, well, how did this happen? Whose idea was it? And we learned that Paul had read an article about it. So it seems like he introduced it, but then Julie says, well, we both sort of came up with it. And then later on, when Paul's trying to win Julie back, and he admits to her, like, I never slept with anyone. And then she had already said she hadn't. She goes, well, why did you want to do it? And he's like, well, look at you and look at me. We're going to get to casting next. But like, you're so much better looking than I am. I figured this would be the only way to keep you. And while that message was clear, I feel like we needed a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel it's refreshing to see a film about heterosexuals that are, you know, trying to be outside the box, but they all needed like a gay friend to give them a copy, sneak them a copy of The Ethical Slut.
Maybe.
Something. I don't know.
That being said, though, I do think that, this does feel as messy as some relationships feel.
That's true.
So then it kind of, like, it feels almost deliberate, mm-hmm. in which case that does work. But getting to the casting, it is a point is made that, like, well, specifically for Dakota Johnson, that she's much more attractive than the actor playing her husband. But the same could be said for Adria Arjona and Kyle Marvin.
I agree, yeah.
I do find it a very interesting pairing. I also find it interesting that Adria's character, the reason she wants a divorce, because she never actually gets to explain why, except that she wants to be more adventurous with sex. And we're told that before she married Kyle, Carey, that she had 3 sex partners before him, and then like 3 while they were married, while she was cheating on him. And it just, I don't know, the way her character looks and what she wants and how the minute her husband ran away, she had men in her bed.
But she's also speaking about them in terms of like she's dating them. Like there's an emotional attachment as well.
Which seems immature to me.
Yeah, and which is fine. I mean, we all reach levels of maturity at different times in our lives.
But all these people look well into their 30s. Paul looks like he's 50 to me, but they seem a little elderly to kind of, it feels a little juvenile to me. Yeah, like sure. These people could be in their 20s. Mm-hmm. So I think we need a little more explaining. I also feel like I like Adria Arjona. I remember her from The Hitman.
Mm-hmm, with Glenn Powell.
So I like her, but I feel like she and Carey together, I think I need a little bit more because we're told that like they don't have anything. So what was he offering her?
Well, except
after 14 months, she's tired of his ass. Why did she marry him in the first place?
Well, I think, as you mentioned afterwards, all 4 characters have characteristics that if they were wrapped up in one person, they'd make an ideal human being. And so he does offer.
So what are those characteristics?
Well, he's sweet and attentive.
Carey's sweet. Ashley
is very honest.
Julie
is very patient.
And then Paul
is.
I think he's like aggressive in that way. Like people want to be chased.
He's tenacious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you took that quality and put from each of them and put into one person, which then we were talking because in the end, it seems like ultimately
it takes a village.
Like, does it take a village to have a happy relationship? I mean, maybe. Because the other thing is we don't know if they're like these people have already sort of had this very sort of dynamic out of the box situation like prior. So I wonder if like moving forward, would they be like this commune where they're open with each other?
I think ultimately, you know, when you're talking about other people's relationships, they're not you, and you have to figure out what works between your own self or selves. But I think it's interesting that this film isn't really offering any answers, and is maybe suggesting that, because at first the way that these people are speaking and how they're approaching an open relationship, I'm like, oh, well, maybe you guys need to have some boundaries, like don't shit where you eat, because clearly that's bothering you. But by the end, it's kind of like, well, maybe this situation does work for them, and who is anyone else to judge?
Well, I took that as like, you don't, you know, your first go around, you don't know what to do, so you are making those mistakes.
Trial by fire.
So it does feel authentic in that way. Mm-hmm. Another, I do have to mention, during the fight scene between Paul and Carey, at one point, well, they break a big aquarium. And so, like, Russ's fish, you know, they're trying to preserve them by throwing them in the bathtub. And then at a point during the fight...
Which almost gets to there's a moment in A Fish Called Wanda that was making me think of, anyway.
At one point, Paul burns off Carey's eyebrows. So for a portion of the film, he doesn't have eyebrows. And then at a point, when they go to, like, Julie and Carey go to, like, a carnival. And she paints on eyebrows, and he looks so crazy, which I thought was funny. But I did think the... amusement park scene also felt a little like, because O.T. Fagbenle's in it is this rando handsome man with a kid who's macking on Julie
hard,
like real hard, like it was kind of nonsensical. Mm-hmm. And Carey gets jealous. The best part of that scene was again Russ wants goldfish to replace the ones that died. And so O.T. Fagbenle wins him a bunch to prove that he's like the superior man.
Superior, yes.
But then he tells Carey to carry them. So Carey is holding like 15 bags of goldfish, and then they get on a roller coaster, which was so ridiculous because the person working the roller coaster tells them, yeah, you can take them on.
That's on you, buddy.
And then the funniest part is as they're riding the roller coaster, these goldfish are flying in the air.
It's so stupid, but it works. Yeah, fish have a hard time in this film.
Okay, I would love to see a movie about, because I really thought at the halfway point when we see that Carey is befriending all of Ashley's like exes, I thought this was going to be kind of like a revenge type story, but it's not. It's just that he was trying to like show her that he could be mature and then maybe make her a little jealous but the main side piece is this guy named Jackson, mm-hmm. who I thought was funny because he's this young, super muscly guy who like the men and the woman who all are part of this little commune and this, they also say they don't have money, but their apartment's really cute. It's like a loft and it's big enough to house all these people.
Yes. Comfortably enough.
Like movie economics are so interesting, but Jackson's character, it seems like Carey spends the most time with him. They get a scene where he's writing his resume. Jackson shows up at Russ's birthday party as a volunteer firefighter, which feels real convenient because there's an actual fire at the party he has to put out. That all felt a little like excessive to me.
But I liked all the little weird movie references at the amusement park. There's a reference to Vanilla Sky, which I thought was amusing. And then at one point, they have a movie night.
They have movie nights every Thursday.
They're watching Lorenzo's Oil, which is the second... Is it Paul with Simon Pegg and Sigourney Weaver that also has a Lorenzo's Oil
reference?
Is the agent's name? Yeah.
Oh, the principal at Russ's school, Russ gets in trouble for breaking some kid's arm because the kid was picking on him. And so the principal calls the parents in, and Carey is a PE coach at Russ's school. And which was kind of interesting because when they're traveling to the house, like how far does he commute every day? It seemed like a long drive they were on to get to...
I agree, and the fact that the kid misses the school bus in one scene seems like it should be a bigger deal than it is. Like,
right.
I have to drive you a long way.
Well, I thought a funny moment during the principal scene is that we go into the principal's office, and he has 3 big oil paintings behind his desk. The one in the middle is of him, mm-hmm. And then the other two are Nelson Mandela and MLK, and the principal's a black man. I thought that was really funny.
That was pretty good. Well, because at first you're like, who is that?
Yeah, like who? I don't recognize the person in the middle. Oh, it's the principal. And then everyone knows him, so they're calling him by his name, Harry, even though he's like, my name is Dr. blah, blah, blah. I thought that scene was actually cute.
Yeah.
Okay, while the birthday party was a little chaotic to me for many reasons, I did think the Mentalist, Ashley's boyfriend, was kind of funny because the kids are not impressed by him. And then in the end, when the two couples are seemingly getting back together, the Mentalist does his grand finale, which is basically like professing his love to Ashley with a magic trick, even though he's not a magician. And basically he got his vasectomy reversed just for her.
With a lemon. There are several lemons in this film.
I thought that scene was funny.
Arnold Palmer's, because I guess when life gives you lemons.
Can we talk about the birthday party?
That scene made me think like if it had come together in the slapsticky way that it intended, it could have felt like a really good Woody Allen moment.
Well, so first off, Paul shows up with this woman who he hired to look like Dakota Johnson. So she has the same brunette hairdo with bangs. He bought her the same dress he knew Dakota was going to wear. Then he doesn't like the dog that Carey bought for his son, so he brings a different dog. That felt crazy.
What is it a Labradoodle?
He thinks Labradoodles are like weak dogs, and so he gets his son something that looks equally as...
Again, that's a really interesting characteristic we don't really explore with him and masculinity.
Then Ashley shows up having prepared another letter she wants to read to Carey, professing her love. But at first she starts off by singing a song from The Frays.
The Fray.
Oh, The Fray. I don't know these people, but...
Oh, as soon as they said that they met at a Fray concert, I was like, whoa.
So then she's trying to hook up with him, and then she ends up like making out with him and giving him a handy. And then Paul is professing his love to Julie, and she buys into it.
I feel like those two characters in particular should have learned more than enough by now that these childish antics that both their exes are employing to get back with them are not cute.
No, but then I thought, because then at the end, I'm like, what is this movie trying to say? And I wonder if the message is that relationships are messy and don't make sense, and everyone's not going to be happy all the time. And then maybe you have to make concessions, and maybe it still won't work out in the end. I'm not convinced that these people in the end are going to have happy, healthy relationships.
No, but they seem like they will continue to have an interesting dance with one another. I think that two statements are made that are kind of spelling out what it's getting at. And one is in that scene where Arjona has been poorly singing a song that I also don't care for, where she's talking about, what she's realized, she's saying, running through all these men, is that happiness is kind of a transitory state that you go in and out of. And then Russ, the child at the end, there's a return to joke where he steals a watercraft and might sink it. But he's like, you don't know the worth of something, he tells this other little kid, until you sink it, which is, once complacency sets in our lives, we tend to kind of ruin it, because I think that we all kind of test boundaries. And what is that song? Each man kills the thing he loves. I think that we have a natural tendency to do that as humans.
Also, Russ, the film, which I think is kind of appropriate because these people are so wrapped up in their own situation, because Carey is kind of acting like a stepdad to Russ, and he's also his PE teacher. It seems like they're ignoring Russ because this kid appears to have some serious behavioral issues that, if they go unchecked, could probably manifest into something very serious. So I think it's interesting that this kid takes a back seat to these parents and their issues.
Right.
Albeit Paul getting, imprisoned for fraud is very serious.
Which is why the birthday scene, because Dakota Johnson, Julie, I always think of Liam Neeson singing Julie in Darkman. She seems to be quite attentive to the child until the birthday scene, which makes no sense because she's very intensely needing candles for the cake at the moment, where she has sex with Paul in a room that anybody could walk into and does. That doesn't make any sense. I will say I liked her more than I did in Materialist, but I think that she has a tendency to have a very familiar affects, even though I commend the fact that she works with a lot of indie filmmakers that she doesn't really have to, which I find interesting. But her characters have a tendency to bleed into one another. So Julie was also giving me Cha-Cha Real Smooth, also giving me Materialist, but I guess in ways that I thought worked better as far as how she's utilized in this film.
What would you give Splitsville?
3.
I liked it. It feels very fresh to me. I think I'll give it 3.5 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.